Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Thomas Gunn with Das Haus. Today we're going to be making a traditional German bread dumpling. It's a very old recipe and this one is not shaped as a ball like you would think of as a normal dumpling. This is actually a log. So this recipe will make 2 logs. The ingredients you're going to need is 14 rolls. So the rolls I use are this size. And it's not a crusty roll. It's a fairly soft roll, as you can see. So how I cube it is actually I slice 3 long slices this way, then I flip it on its side, I slice 3 more, and then I just cut this way. So I end up with these cubes. These cubes then you're going to soak in 1 liter of warmed milk. So warm up some milk in a pot, 1 liter, and then you pour it over the breadcrumbs and just let it sit and soak. Let it soak for a good 10-15 minutes. Every few minutes come and give them a good stir so that the milk that might be sitting on the bottom gets incorporated and that the breadcrumbs that are on top, which are not getting wet, have a chance to soak up some liquid as well. So once it's to this consistency, we need to make the binding paste. So for the paste, we will need 4 large eggs, which as you can see, I've got my 4 large eggs, and give them a whisk. In the end, I might have to adjust, and if I do, I will let you know what it is I'm adding, because it really comes down to the size of the eggs sometimes. If they're not big enough, you might have to add an extra one. So, and I didn't mention also, please salt your bread and add an 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg to the bread. I actually add that to the milk as it's warming so that it infuses the milk. I say 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon because it depends on, how much you like the flavor of nutmeg. So to this now we're going to add 150 grams of flour, plain white flour. Give that a stir. In German, this dumpling is traditionally called Servietten, Klos. So Klos means dumpling, and a serviette is typically a napkin. So they would traditionally roll these in a napkin or a tea towel, but I've adjusted that just a little bit to make it a little bit simpler, but we'll get to that. So here we go. Here's so far the flour and the egg mix. Now to this, I'm going to add 150 grams of melted cooled butter. So let's pour that in. There's our butter. And that's it for the paste. So let's incorporate this and then we will judge the consistency. Because if my consistency is too wet, we'll add some flour. Conversely, if it's too dry, we'll add another egg. Like I said, sometimes when you're baking it comes down to the temperature, to the humidity. I know it doesn't make much sense, but the humidity plays a factor in how much moisture your flour is holding. So this, I can tell you right now, is much too runny. I don't want it this runny, it has to be a thicker paste. So at this point, I'm going to add 1/4 of a cup of flour. And we'll incorporate that. It's getting gummier, but I still think that's too loose. So another scant 1/4 cup flour, and I think that should be fine. Let's see how this works. See, you almost want it all to be coming up as one ball when you pick it up with the whisk. So to me, that's a good consistency. As you can see, if I were to really push my whisk in and pick it up, it almost comes up as one clump. It's not going to fall off my whisk. It's a very thick batter. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add that to the breadcrumbs. So let's just add that in. I'm going to get myself a better spatula just so I can clean my bowl out, because otherwise I would have missed all this. Get that in. And now you're just going to fold it in. So I like to spread it all over the top first. And now we're just going to fold. Once we have this formed into logs, you can put it in the fridge. I wouldn't put it in the fridge overnight, but certainly for a few hours. I'm preparing this in the morning. We will be eating in about 5 hours. That's fine. You can hold it in the fridge for a few hours, and then when you're ready to cook, you need a large pot filled with salted boiling water, and these will boil on a low boil, but you do want to make sure that your water is actually bubbling. Because if your water is just simmering, then they're basically just sitting in hot water and they're just going to get very soggy. You need your water to be boiling on a low boil. And these will then boil for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So keep that in mind if you're trying to time out your meal. So as you can see, everything's getting covered with that paste that we've made. You don't have to be too gentle. So that's good. It's all combined. Everything is covered. Now I don't remember if I actually showed you the size of the roll, so I'm going to do that again just in case I didn't. This is the type of roll I use. It's not a hard crust, it's a fairly soft roll cut into cubes. Probably, I'd say, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch cubes. Alrighty, so I'm going to get my quote-unquote tea towels and I'll be back to show you what it is that we do with them. Okay, now we're ready to roll the dumpling. So what I have on the counter here is a piece of white cotton sheet that's been soaked in water and then squeezed out. So this is, a piece of sheet. I specifically buy a white top sheet for this purpose. In the past, I'm sure they would use their tea towels and wash them afterwards and reuse them, but I don't like the idea of all that glue paste in your washing machine. And I typically make this, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, so it's usually made twice a year, maybe sometimes 3 times a year. So this sheet will last me a long time. This sheet I've cut to about 18 by 18. Like I said, I've soaked it and then I've wrung it out, running the water out, and placed it on my counter. So in the past, like I said, this is called a napkin dumpling, if I translate it directly. They would use napkins. And napkins, I've done it with tea towels, because in the past napkins would be this big, but it's also being done with tea towels. That's how I was taught. But tea towels are really thick and they take up a lot of room in the pot. So I prefer using a sheet that it does just as good a job, probably even better, and it's much thinner, so it takes up less room in the water. So now I'm going to take this, roughly divide it in half, just eyeball it with your spoon, and then we're going to put half of it on this piece of wet sheet. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do a roll, make it into a roll. So this is basically, if you've ever done a sushi roll, it's kind of like working with the seaweed, not seaweed, whatever the green thing is that they use. Okay, so take your sheet and we're going to pull it over the roll, and as you're pulling, try to apply some pressure down so that you're starting to make a roll. Can you see that, how it's rolling? Put it back down, grab this end of your sheet and do the same thing. Apply pressure downwards and at the same time roll. Do you see how that's becoming a roll? Let's do it again from the top side. Apply pressure down, roll, place this back down. From this side, do the same now. So now we've got it pretty well, nice shape of a roll, but my ends are tapered. I don't want the ends as tapered because then it's not going to cook evenly. So then I take my ends, and I mean, you can be rough. I'm just doing this quite slowly now because I want to show you how to do it. But take the end of your sheet and just tap it in. See that? Now I've made it a solid roll. Everything is the same thickness. So now that I've got it like this, I'm just going to take it again and roll and roll. Tap it again. Roll, roll, and one more tap. So that's a good size. That's probably about 12 inches. It's in a uniform thickness all the way from end to end. So now all you have to do is, I'm going to give it one more roll, just a light roll down to the side, the end here. That's hard for you to see. Here, let me move it up a bit. So there we go. So now I have it sitting on my napkin, which in my case is a sheet. Now we're just going to roll it up. We're going to close it in the sheet. There we go. So that is what your roll should be looking like at this point. It's hard to see on the white against the white. Maybe the next one when I show you, I'll try to put a different color down on the counter. So now what I do is I take an elastic. I have an elastic band or a rubber band. I double it up so I don't have to go around as many times. And then I put this around the end. You need to close off the roll. Once it's ready to serve, this comes off easy in the water. I just cut it off with a scissor. So we've done one end. Turn it around, close off the other end. Don't make it overly tight because these dumplings do expand. So you want to leave them a little bit of room to do that. There we go. So now I have my roll. I'll show you maybe on my sleeve. It's easier for you to see. So that's the roll. At this point, it's probably still about 12 inches. Now what I do is, because this has to drop into a pot, these ends just take up space. You don't need them. So if you take a scissor at this stage, and then we're just going to cut those ends off. Because like I said, they're redundant. We don't need them. I mean, leave a little bit because you don't want this to open while it's cooking. But you don't need more than an inch of this end sitting in the pot. So there we go. I've cut that off to just about an inch left. Let's cut this side off. Just open it up a bit, it makes it easier to cut. And there we go. So that's your dumpling roll. This is going to go in the fridge now. I'm going to put it on a platter, put it in the fridge until an hour and 15 minutes before, well, let's say an hour and 20 minutes before I want to serve, because it will need to boil on a low boil for an hour and 15 minutes. So let's make another one real quick. I'm going to do the second one quicker, but I would like to put something down on the counter so that you can see what I'm doing easier. So let me do that and I'll be right back. All right, here we go. So I put down a wooden board that should allow you to see better. Here's my second piece of sheet, 18 by 18. This time we're going to move a little quicker. Got my sheet down. I'm going to put on the sheet my second half of dumpling. There we go. And now we're ready to roll. Lift it up, push down, roll. Lift it up, push down, roll. Lift it up, push down, roll. You can see that the air pockets inside are becoming less and less as you're rolling, which is what you want. Push down, roll, push down, roll. Pick up your ends, just tap it in to start making it a uniform thickness, the length of the log. Push down, roll, push down, roll, tap in the ends. One more time and we'll be good. See, there's still a few pockets here if you can see that. I just want to get rid of the bigger ones. Once it's basically, you know, consistent throughout the log, then we're good. If you find you have, you know, too many air pockets, you're not applying enough pressure as you're rolling. There we go. So that's good. I'm going to tap in the ends to make it uniform. I'm going to bring it down to this end. So now we're ready to roll. Just going to close it up. Like I said, not too tight. Just let the, you know, the log roll of its own volition. There we go. So there's our log. This one looks a little longer than, well, let's see. Here's the one we just did. So it's I almost got it exactly to be half. So now we take our elastic band, I double it up, so now it's one thicker band, and now we're going to just close up the end. Again, you don't have to go too tightly towards the end because these do expand. There we go. I'm going to cut off the excess because it just takes up room in a pot. So the pot you choose will have to be at least the diameter or the width of this roll, because the roll sits in the pot this way. Spin it around. One more rubber band. Does everybody call these rubber bands or elastics? I think up here in Canada we call them elastics, but when I watch American videos, I think more often I hear rubber band. I think elastic, you know, like the word Kleenex, I mean, we're supposed to say it's a tissue, not a Kleenex. Kleenex is a name brand of a tissue. Well, elastic is a name brand of a rubber band, but we just always up here call them elastics. So whether you're using a rubber band or an elastic, you get it on your roll, close up the ends, cut off this excess fabric, and there you have it. Two nicely shaped rolls, dumplings. These can now go in the fridge to set. If you aren't making them too long in advance, please do let them set a little bit at least. Put them in the fridge for at least half an hour so they set up a bit. If not, like I said, they can stay in the fridge, you know, 4 or 5 hours before cooking. So these will now go in the fridge. When I'm ready to cook, they'll go in a large pot so that they are covered. They won't stay covered the whole time. I mean, some of the dumpling will sit above, so as it's boiling, once in a while, maybe every 15 minutes, go back and just turn them so that, you know, every piece of the roll is submerged at some point in the boiling water. So I'll come back when they're in the pot, hopefully, and give you a quick view of what we're doing. And there you have it. So here we are at the stage where we're going to add the dumplings to the boiling water. As you can see, I've got a huge pot. It's a bit of overkill, but I need the diameter. So you're going to drop the dumplings in, both of them. Bring the water back up to a boil, and then let it cook for an hour and 15 minutes on a low boil. Make sure the water does keep boiling, because otherwise your dumplings will begin to soak up the liquid. 1 hour and 15 minutes. Give them a stir once in a while so that each side is fully submerged, and when they're done, I'll be back to slice them up. Okay, here we go. So they're out of the pot. They've been boiling for an hour and 15.
Are you good? Do you oh, sorry.
So I'm just going to uncut the elastics. I've let them sit for about 15 minutes. And then we unroll. And now we do the other one. There we go. And there you have it. 2 bread dumplings. And now you just slice them. So as you can see, this one log made 14 slices. Now we're going to slice the other one. And there you go. 2 traditional German bread dumplings, perfect for the holidays. If you enjoyed this recipe, please give this video a like, subscribe, ring the bell, and bon appetit.